All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Bums podcast. It's your host, Rob, aka B-Ball Archives, and once again, I'm joined by the Bums. AJ, Adam, thank you for joining me tonight. We're going to talk some pre-draft stuff. Hope y'all are ready.
I am ready.
Pre-draft.
And I'm wearing my college alma mater shirt because we will have two players that will be taken in the first round. Both of you bums went to Texas Tech, and neither of you will. But a few guys that chose to leave your college will likely be drafted on Wednesday, but they didn't stick around. So,
absolutely. But yeah, I think we should just dive on in with a little Spurs news. I was just talking with Adam a little bit ago, but hey, we know that the 4th and the 8th pick are not going to be satisfied with that number 1 spot. So I think that just that in itself means, hey, we're not willing to put all of our chips in for the number 1 pick. How do y'all feel about that?
I feel
good with it.
I feel like it's the right decision, personally. Mm-hmm. I think this is a draft year where you don't really know who the number 1 player is. I think if you've looked at mock drafts over the last few months, that not only has the lottery been all over the place, but the number 1 pick is, in multiple different mock draft websites has gone to different guys. And I think with, this being considered one of the worst drafts since like 2013, at least over the last decade or so, you need to give yourself 2 swings at it. And I think there's a scenario where the 4th guy in the draft or the 5th guy in the draft could be the best player in the draft. Because again, there's no real consensus. So I think having 2 swings at it in the top 8's a better option for us. And yeah, I think it's too steep to move up 3 picks to give up another really high pick. I just don't think. I think in other years it would be worth it with a consensus number 1, but I think in other years with a consensus number 1 that wouldn't be viewed as enough. Yeah, what does Mr. Agapit think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think this is definitely one of those drafts that, we could get lucky and hit on both. We could get lucky and get just one. Either one is going to be great for us. I don't think the Spurs have any bad decisions really coming into the draft. Like whatever they decide to do, I think is going to be great. Where they decide to trade, they decide to move up. If they decide to go with any of these top 10 picks, well, not any of them. I've been seeing, was it Klingon, that guy? Can we not get him? We don't need to go back to 1990. This is not how the game's played. We can peel that one back. But outside of him, I think we can go with anyone and have a great draft. If we want to trade it for some better players, some I guess already established players, I'm okay with that too. Just whatever we can do. I hope we just pair someone or a couple people that will play well with Wemby, and that's really what it comes down to.
Well, Rob, what do you think our biggest needs are as the Spurs team? What are the Spurs' biggest needs going into the draft, and who do you think would fill that the best?
Honestly, I think we need people that can hit shots. We need consistent 3-point shooting. A guy like I'm kind of up in the air with that number 4 pick. I think that there's a lot of guys that I think could end up filling that spot, whether we go for value or we go for need. But I think with that number 8 pick, I wouldn't be upset if we went for Dalton Knecht. I think that he is an absolute deadly 3-point shooter. He's got good size as a guard. He's not going to have to handle the ball a lot. He can play off ball really well, catch and shoot, and that's exactly what Wemby's going to need. He's going to get collapsed on, and I think he would be a perfect option to sit there. I could see him easily getting 10, 11, 12 points just off of easy shots because Wemby's creating so much space for him. So I think that is a guy that I'm actually high on. I mean, you saw him 3 years at Tennessee, and each year he was about 45% from beyond the arc. That's consistent, and that's elite. I think that he's a guy I'm definitely high on, but I kind of disagree. I think that there's a lot of misses that we could have with that number 4 pick, and it kind of scares me a little bit. We could end up taking a guard that ends up just falling, kind of blending in with everyone else. And I don't want that to be the case.
Well, as a Spurs team, to piggyback off what you said, we need shooting. We need
Mhm.
consistent 3-point shooters. I think we had one of like the highest potential assist rates in the NBA, meaning we put ourselves in the position to have the most assists. We just didn't shoot well enough to actually get them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we need consistent 3-point shooting. A guy like Dalton Connect would certainly do that. He's a really good shooter. I think whenever you take a guy like him, you're drafting him for his floor. He's one of the oldest prospects in the draft that's going to be going in the lottery. You're not drafting him for his upside. And in a draft like this, you really have to decide: do I want those floor guys? Do I want a guy that's just going to be a role player, or do I want to swing for the fences and at 4 take a guy like Stephon Castle, who could end up being one of the best two-way players in the draft? He's highly regarded as probably the top defender that's going to be going in the lottery. The question is he actually have the ability to play a point guard? He's not a great shooter yet. And if you
No.
watch Connecticut play kind of in the run of the tournament, he was like the third or the fourth option a lot of the times. He really didn't stand out that much. I think he just played within the system, but he's a guy that I think is viewed as more of an upside. I'll tell you a player that his draft stock started to go down a little bit, but I'd be interested to see us take him at 8, and that's Rob Dillingham.
Yeah.
And I know he's a guy that if you followed, college basketball recruiting and saw him, he was a guy that in high school put on like these crazy mixtapes, over dribbling, taking insane shots. And whenever he went into Kentucky, he came off the bench and he's continued to come off the bench, but Cal was trying to like rein him in. Calipari was. And by the end of the season, he was probably their number one scoring option. He's who they would go through late in games. And he strikes me as a guy that, at worst in the NBA, he could be like a Jamal Crawford, where he just comes in on the second unit and can carry you offensively for a few minutes at a time. But I also think he's probably, as of right now, the most elite shot making player in the NBA draft. I think that in terms of playing isolation basketball, he can create his own shot better than any other player in the NBA draft right now. And I
But
think that will
is that a
translate.
good shot? I always see him taking questionable shots, and you're right, he does have the athleticism and he's got really good shifty ball handling. I've heard a lot of comparisons to Jamal Crawford and, Lou Williams, guys that can come in and give you quick explosiveness off the bench and stuff like that. And, I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, like, what were those players you know, outside of just points? Like, not really good distributors, not really good rebounders, not amazing defenders. It's like I view his upside, kind of like everyone else, and I think that's why you kind of see him falling in mock drafts.
But
Yeah,
if
I don't
he's a
think he's
micro,
going to.
but if he's a microwave and he can get hot quick, I mean, that could it could be interesting to have someone like that, just as someone who's raw, and then we kind of mold them almost like how Jonathan Simmons was, but he was just really raw, but we molded him into a guy that got picked up by the Magic and got paid a whole bunch of money to play basketball.
Honestly, since Chip England left, I
That's
really
fair.
don't think that we are quite known as the organization that helps improve players' shots as much as we used to.
I'll give you that.
Because, just to be brutally honest.
In
No, that's
terms of
fair.
Rob Dillingham, I don't think that he's a guy that you really need to impact his shot. You can tell from how he shoots; he's a natural shooter.
No,
But
no, I agree.
what he's not going to come in and do is be a great defender. He's not going to be a great rebounder. But I think he potentially has more of a ceiling as an all around basketball player than a Lou Williams potentially. Not necessarily a better bucket getter, because those guys could score with the best of them. But I think he has the ability to play above the rim a little bit more. I think he plays as quick, if not quicker, than both of them can. And if he can work on his facilitating and with the amount of spacing you actually have in the NBA, I'd be excited to see what he could do, because he's
Yeah.
still young. He was a top prospect at a high school. I just think he's one of those guys that would be a potential upside pick. And that's kind of what I would rather swing for. We're not in an immediate winning window. I would rather find role players in free agency, or maybe go safe with one of the picks. But I think he'd be a high upside pick that I'd at least be excited to see what happens.
No, I totally agree. I think his upside and his offensive potential are definitely worth a gamble. I just think that I don't view that necessarily fitting well with the Spurs because I want guys that can play off ball. And what I've seen from him is a lot of, ball dominant play. And if you're ball dominant and not really known for distribution, I don't really think that screams Spurs system. But hey, he said he wants to play with
Yeah, he
Wemby
does.
and he knew he would know the assignment. So hey, I'll take him at his word.
As long as he's better than that other Baylor guy we drafted, I'll be fine. But I think the biggest thing is I don't know. In recent memory, I think we've all pretty much known who the number one pick is. I don't know if it's solidified really who the number one pick is. I don't know if Atlanta knows what they're going to do with the number one pick, and I don't know if like really where these players are going to land. I mean, last year we pretty much knew that it was going to be Wimby and Scoot, and then Brandon Miller. Like we knew it was going to be like those three.
It was
But or
Brandon
Brandon
Miller,
Miller went
Scoot,
second,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But like that's how it was going to go down, and like after that, it was kind of up in the air. I just feel that Atlanta can go with a whole bunch of options at one, and then two. I don't know. Who knows what that's going to be? I don't know what Houston wants to do with the number three pick. So it's very possible we could get a guy that was projected first 2 weeks ago at 4.
Well, I
Oh
think the two
yeah.
guys that have overall been in mock drafts for the last several months at the number one overall pick are two Frenchmen and Zachary Rizachet, who I think if I had to look at Vegas odds right now, I think he would probably be the odds favorite to go first overall. But in recent weeks, he had been falling down in mock drafts a little bit
Mm-hmm.
as his shot struggled towards the end of his season in France. I think Alex R, I don't want to say is locked into Washington at 2, but it seems very likely that they're going to be taking him at the 2 spot. If you think about it, they just traded away Daniel Gafford. They don't really have a center on their roster, so he kind of makes sense to go in there. But to go back to what Rob said earlier, 4 versus 8 or 4 and 8 for the number one overall pick. I think if we were to do that, I think it's league wide that Riza Shea is our favorite player in the draft.
Yeah.
I personally think there's at least an outside shot that he falls to 4.
Same.
I think there's a scenario where Donovan Clingan could go first. I think there's a scenario where Reed Shepard ends up going third to Houston. And I think there's a scenario where Alex Sarr ends up going to second to Washington. So if we see Donovan Clingan go first overall, I think there is a shot that we get our guy at 4. And you never know. That report that you said popped out earlier, Rob, that could all be a smokescreen. It could all be because Atlanta's saying they're going to take Riza Shea and they don't want to trade him. You never know. Teams at this stage are still playing games. I do have to ask you a question. As I'm mentioning Donovan Clingan's name, I see my good friend AJ over here shaking his head left to right. Please explain to me why you don't like Donovan Clingan.
I don't see it. I just think he moves like a guy with cement in his feet. Like I don't see it. The game how it is right now, I just don't see a scenario where how he is a top pick. I just personally, I mean, like I'm sure defensively he's going to be fine, but I just don't see him coming into the NBA as a number one or even a lottery pick and coming out strong like that. I mean, he could end up being somebody, but he could also be Rick Smits. We'll see.
Hey, if
Rick Smits was nice.
Smits was not bad. He was pretty decent.
Rick Smits was nice, bro. I mean, but I mean, I think I agree with his footwork. I think his footwork is really slow. That's something he needs to work on. But I think he's going to step in and probably be the second best rim protector from this draft. I think that, I see him being able to defend the rim similar to like a Walker Kessler. Like he's going to be able he's going to be able to step in and get blocks, finish around the rim. And as long as he's not asked to do too much offensively, I think that his defense could shine right away. I just think that Sarr is the better rim protector. I think that, he's got 7'4" wingspan. He's quicker. He's got much faster feet, can recover better, even though I think Clingan might be a little bit stronger. I think that Sarr, from what I've seen from him, he recovers really well defensively. So I think just based off that alone, I'd rather go with Sarr, especially like you said, Adam. They got rid of Gafford. It makes sense for Washington to go after somebody that's got length and the ability to protect the rim.
Yeah. Personally, I'm a big Donovan Clingan fan, and
No,
I think
really?
he's one of the I
Oh,
think he's one of the safest picks in this draft personally. And to kind of refute what AJ said a little bit, it really depends on like what your team needs are at the time. If you're a team like the Spurs and you don't want to draft a guy like Donovan Clingan because it's going to force Victor Wembanyama away from the basket defensively, I understand that. But if you're a team like Washington who needs a big defensive anchor, I think he could be a really good fit for them. I personally view him as a better defensive prospect than Alex Sarr. I think Alex Sarr maybe makes some more eye popping blocks weak side and can like recover, like Rob said, to play a little bit more athletically. But I think in terms of overall defense, Donovan Klinger's going to foul a little bit less. I think he's going to be able to maybe play the pick and roll somewhat a little bit better. I think that he was really well coached playing in Connecticut, and I put a little bit of a value on being the best player on a back-to-back national championship team. So I think personally, if the Spurs took Donovan Clingan, I know that maybe positionally it's not the best fit because I don't know how he and Wemby would play together. I almost think we'd have to figure out a way to play some zone. But I would be excited about it in the sense that I think he's a good player, and I would trust that we would find a way to work it out. And I at least think he's going to be an NBA player, a
he's
double
going to be an
double
NBA
guy with
player.
2 to 3 blocks a game for the next decade plus. And
I
I
just
don't know that you can say that about a lot of guys.
yeah, I get that. I get it. I just for me, seeing two 7-footers on the floor together, we just saw it with the Timberwolves. We thought it was going to be working out great, but then they just got ran off the floor. So I don't see.
I mean, they made it to the Western Conference Finals. I don't think that you look
Yeah,
at the
and
two
they're
7-footers and say it didn't work this year.
I mean, and they got smoked by the Mavs, who Luka's still limping to this day. So I just don't see I just don't see the for the Spurs at least. If we end up going with them, I'm gonna be very upset. I might hang my flag upside
I
down.
don't know. That almost you bringing that up almost gives me more confidence in the thought of we could live off two
I'd
seven
much
footers. Yeah, they
I'd much
lost to the Mavs, but they also beat the Nuggets. And I don't know. Couldn't some people have compared Donovan Clingan to Rudy Gobert? I don't know that he's gonna be a
we'll
3-time,
see.
4-time defensive player of the year, but there has been the comparison thrown out there. And Wemby, he's not the same exact player as Cat, but certainly has some similarities offensively.
A lot of
Well, I mean,
similarities.
if we drafted Donovan Clingan and he took all of the minutes that Zach Collins was playing, and we get Zach Collins the fuck out of here, then I'm
Okay.
actually okay with that.
Why
Then
did we pay him?
I'm
I'd
actually
Oh
much
my
okay with that.
god.
I'd much rather go with Alex Sarv myself, just because he has at least a year of professional basketball under his belt. Granted, he was hurt the majority of the time, but playing in the NBL is like it's no joke. So I do think that the Australian League is, I would say, a top 3 league in the world right now. So I don't mind him. I like him because I feel when you see guys who played overseas, no matter where it was at, they come in ready to play and they understand just the level of, I guess, dedication, because you're traveling, you're with the guys, you're trying to understand how this whole thing works. College is a little different. College, you have, it's NIL, and it's a little funky compared to what's going on overseas. So I like Alex R a lot more than Klingon personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like there's definitely things to like and kind of question about both players, whether or not it's offensive side of the game. I think I'm questioning both of these guys on offense and how they can develop moving forward, but at the same time I think that they're both going to be really useful right out of the gate. A
So I
couple
have a
other
couple. I'm
Oh,
sorry. Go
okay.
ahead, Rob.
No, no, no,
No, no.
no, no, no. Yeah, you
Well,
got it.
so I was gonna. One of the topics I had written down. There's 3 French draft prospects that are in this class. 2 of them we've already spoken about, but there's also I don't want to butcher his name,
Do it.
but he's possibly considered the best French player in the draft, and he's going to go a little bit lower. In some mocks, he's projected to go to us to Jean Salouan. I don't
Yeah,
know if y'all have
that,
much
that
much
name
on
pops up.
him, but I'm curious who's y'all's favorite French basketball player in this draft.
I mean, it's Rizachet, definitely. Like it's Zachary, without a
Definitely,
doubt.
just definitely.
without a doubt. Like you were talking about upside earlier, and this guy is I mean, he's 6'8", he's lengthy, and when you see him hit really, really difficult shots, you get a glimpse of what could be. And I think that if you're trying to find the diamond in the rough, it's a guy that can play guard, he can play forward, you can slot him at the 2, 3, maybe 4 if you're running a small ball lineup, and really, potentially be a really, really potent attacker. Like I saw a lot of like almost like Brandon Ingram in his game a little bit, where it was like, okay, you're immature with your shot selection. It's leading to you being inefficient, but dang, I can see a glimpse of that greatness in there if you can kind of just hone it a little bit.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
fair.
he's certainly projected to go first out of all three. I think Siluan, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, you look at him and you look at him as like a high energy guy, a big three, more so a four who can come in and rebound, defend. Apparently, he has a super high motor, and if he can improve his jump shot, there's some that think he's potentially the best prospect in the draft. The one thing I'll say about Riza Shea, he is this prototypical 3 and D floor stretching player who has elite 3-point shooting upside, but he hasn't always put it together from the 3-point line. I think statistically he's somewhat underwhelmed. And then at the combine, he really underwhelmed everybody with his athletic metrics. He is tall. I think his wingspan came in a little bit lower than hoped. I think he had one of the worst verticals in the entire draft. I think his standing vertical was like 25 or 26, which is wild for a number one overall
Nice.
prospect. I bet yours at one point in time was more than that, Rob. I'm not going to say mine was, but I don't
It
know. I think
was. It for
the
sure was.
athletic numbers are a little disappointing for me to see. But you don't have to be a great athlete to be good. You look at a guy like Luka, he's not a superior athlete to really anyone. He's obviously one of the best players in the world. So but yeah, that's just something I wanted to ask. I don't know if y'all had someone that kind of stood out to you and if y'all had seen much of Salawan.
I think it's interesting to see what
Haven't.
happens with Nikola Topic. With him tearing his ACL not too long ago and him kind of going through his rehab right now, and his draft stock just absolutely plummeted. I'm curious to know if there's somebody in the top 10 or top 15 for that matter that's going to take a flyer and hope he, is going to be the same guy post injury. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens with him. I know he was in talks for us going at 8 for a while, but those seem to kind of disappear. So I'm really curious to see what happens with him. But this whole draft thing's been a lot of fun. I tell you that the rumors and the chess playing that everyone's doing and putting news out there, just like, oh, we think we're gonna go with this guy, and then that kind of gets everyone going. What's his name? Landry with the Hawks saying like, we'll listen to offers for the number one spot. Like all this just gamesmanship is a lot of fun for me.
One
Oh yeah, that's a large part of what the off season is about, is just playing chess.
And as a Spurs fan, it's obviously exciting to have 2 picks in the top 8. You mentioned Nikola Topic, and that was a guy up until when he hurt his knee. He was probably the player that I wanted the most out of anybody in the draft. In terms of team needs, he's a clear cut point guard. He can get downhill. He would certainly be probably the best natural point guard in the draft, and his ability to get Victor Wembanyama the ball. I don't know what the torn ACL does. I know that his jump shot certainly needs improvement, but if you take him, he's a guy that really might be back by All-Star break. He's not going to play a whole lot his rookie year. It really is hurting it. It would still be a guy where if we took him at the 8th overall pick, I'd still would be excited about it. If we can work on his shot, I think that he could be one of the best fits for us in the draft. He's a tall guard. He can get
Right.
downhill. He can pass. He can do quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the best passer in the draft for sure. Like he's the best pure distributor in the draft. And when you look at his ACL, it's actually only a partial tear. I don't think he's going to be out as long as a lot of people think he was originally going to be out. I mean, he's going to miss a lot of the rookie season, don't get me wrong, but I think that we could actually see him play enough basketball to get a sense of who he is his rookie season, which is, that's going to be kind of, something we may not have thought of. But I agree with you, Adam. If we end up taking him at that 8th spot, I think that we can be confident that we're going to get somebody that is essentially going to have that Spurs mindset, move the ball, give up the good shot to find the great shot. It's not going to be really hard to get him to buy into that system.
Sure. One guy that, I feel compelled for us to bring up as a draft night topic is going to be Bronny James. So I know,
I don't know who that is.
yeah, who knows who that is? Who's his dad, especially?
Oh, he's that USC kid, right?
Yeah, something like that. I
Yep.
think he's from California.
Cool.
He's going to go 55. He's going to go 55th overall to the LA Lakers. I'm calling it right now.
What would
this
make
is
you
going
say
to
that?
be the post. This is going to be the post that I post when that happens. He's going 55th overall, everyone.
I want to vent a little bit about Bronny James. I feel bad.
Let me go on mute.
Please do. I feel bad hating on an 18, 19-year-old kid who didn't ask for all this attention himself. He gets a bunch of hate because of who his father is. So while I feel bad that he gets negative hate, I think that what his camp has done over the last few weeks, he almost deserves all of it. This is a kid that averaged 3 points a game in college. Okay. He got invited to the combine when a lot of players who produced at a way higher level didn't. This kid has turned down, at the advice of Clutch Sports and Rich Paul, interviews, workouts from numerous NBA teams. In what world is a guy who would never get drafted in any year, even in one of the worst years ever, in what world can a guy who is going to go late second at best turn down workouts? Furthermore, he has said he will not sign a two-way contract. The entitlement. You say, hey, just treat me normally. I don't want to go necessarily play with my father. I just want to be treated. I just want to have a chance to play at the NBA. But then you turn down workouts. You say you won't sign a two-way contract. Which is it? Do you just want to fit in, or do you actually want to go through the grind like most people would have to?
Hey, you're not wrong. Yeah, you're
on TikTok.
Like and subscribe, bitch.
Right. Adam hating on a teenager. There we go.
Yep.
Well, honestly, Adam, if you saw Space Jam 2, you'd understand LeBron James is a shitty father.
Oh, God damn. That's harsh. Is he a bad dad? No, I haven't seen that movie.
In Space Jam 2, he was like, come on, son, you got to practice harder. And he's like, Daddy, I didn't want to be a basketball player. And he's like, oh, care, blah, blah, blah. It's like, come on, man. Like,
heard the movie sucked and I didn't go see it.
It was cheeks. You don't need to.
Somebody tell me where I'm wrong with regards to Bronny. Someone called the lie out.
I don't think you're wrong. I think that, him not wanting to accept certain workouts, I think that's because he knows where he's going already. I think that's because he knows where he's going. But I agree with you about the two-way contract. I think that is just saying, hey, I'm not willing to accept what so many players around my skill level are doing. And I'm sorry, but if your comp is Davion Mitchell at best, you may have to sign a two-way contract. You may have to prove yourself at a certain point. You're not, like, even if you are a part of the roster, you are not even going to sniff the court if that's your attitude.
And Davion Mitchell was the number 2 player on the national championship team. Granted, he was older, but I have heard the comp. I've heard the comp.
Yeah,
but it's also like, but also it's the report came out that all these teams wanted to work you out. You're like, no, we're only doing the Lakers and Suns. And when you got done with that, you're like, can we call those other teams? And it's like, dude, you burnt that bridge. Like, now you're the guy in the locker room that has his own office and you didn't deserve it. And so I'm curious to see what team is going to go out on a limb. I mean, it might be the Lakers, but also who's going to go out on a limb and maybe try to get LeBron James and get something quick. So we'll see, kind of monitor that, because he hasn't, to my knowledge, LeBron James has not signed an extension or a contract with the Lakers as of yet.
Like, what if the Clippers take him?
He's not leaving LA.
Well, that's why I said the Clippers. What if the Warriors draft him? What if the Clippers draft him? What if the Warriors draft him? What if Sacramento drafts him? He'd stay in. I'm saying
Sacramento.
he'd stay in California. That's the only reason I'm bringing that up. He'd be staying in
No,
California.
I get it.
Sacramento,
I get
yeah.
it.
That'd be
Goes to
wild.
the Kings.
Dude. Could you
You see
imagine if he went to the
LeBron
Kings?
James, LeBron James in a Kings uniform, or is that what we're talking about
he
right
is,
now? It's
he
like,
is technically King James, so we're kind of worked out.
bro, I could see some ridiculous marketing campaigns built around that. That would be sick, actually.
Yep.
Light the beam. Oh, can you imagine LeBron James lighting the beam?
Oh my gosh.
Are there any other compelling storylines in the draft that y'all want to take the time to discuss?
I'm trying to think. Oh, there. Well, whenever I was bringing up Dalton Necht, I was trying to think of a good rookie of who I would compare him to, and I think that he could step in and be really similar to what we saw from like a Jaime Jaquez. He's a guy that already played 3 seasons of college basketball. I think that he played at a very elite level. He's mature. He's ready to step in and help a team right now. And I think that that's part of the reason why I like him so much is he is going to be that guy. You know what he's going to be able to do, and you know he's mature enough to kind of just handle the workload right away. Which
Yeah.
some of these guys, it's kind of a toss up.
Yeah, no, I think that's I don't know that they play 100% alike, but in terms of him being able to come in and contribute in a similar capacity to what Jaime Jaquez was coming out of UCLA. And he's a guy that really ran up the draft boards. I'll actually bring up another guy who's projected to go way later in the draft who could be an asset to a team like Denver, or a team like Boston. And he actually wore the red and black for a couple of years, and that's Kevin McCullers, or as our good friend Matt Wisnat calls him, Judas. I think that he, on a really good Kansas team, I think that he was their most valuable player. And whenever he got hurt and didn't play in the tournament, you could tell they were not the same basketball team. So Kevin McCullers is the guy that I think could come in and maybe like a Christian Braun or even like a Jaime Jaquez come in and get minutes and contribute early.
If the Spurs can get McCullough in the second round, that would be pretty.
I would love
pretty
that,
awesome
actually. Yeah, I've
that would be
circled
awesome
that.
for us.
Yeah.
That dude is a straight up shooter. He's a scorer. He knows how to play defense. That's why he went to Tech to begin with, and he played great defense at Kansas. And yeah, I mean he knows how to win, and he has the right attitudes from San Antonio. So if we can get the second round pick, that would be pretty cool.
Well, we have what, the third
well,
or the fourth pick in the second round?
Yeah, we got the 35th, and he's projected to go in that ballpark. So we could end up with Kevin on our squad. I wouldn't mind that. He's 6'7". That's good size for his position. I just wonder if he's going to be fully healthy. Didn't he hurt like a knee or something?
He's hurt a lot in college, honestly.
Yeah.
I do want to take a minute to give a shout out to 2 Baylor Bears in the draft. As you can see, repping the college right now.
Yes,
we
established that already.
Yeah, I know, but we've got Jacoby Walter, who is a top 5 prospect coming out of high school. There were times early on in conference play and preseason play where he, at different point in time, was projected to go first overall, top 5. He's slowly fallen down as his inability to create shots for himself and his shot for others has kind of come into question. But I still think he's a good kid. He's got a good work ethic. And if he can work on his ball handling and ability to get to the hole, I think could be a good NBA player. He does need to improve on that stuff. But I'll tell you a guy that has a lot of upside and could, if you look back on this draft, has the potential to be the best center in the draft, and that's Yves Macy. This guy reclassified. He was originally supposed to be a D1 player, a college freshman this upcoming year. He came in a year early. He's only played basketball for about 4 or 5 years. And I think it's very easy to compare him right off the bat. Why am I blanking on the Atlanta center right now? Not on Kongwu. What can I say his name?
Oh, you're talking about Capella?
Capella, in terms of a rim runner, an athlete, catching lobs. If you watched our game against Duke, he gave big problems to Duke's starting center, who I'm also forgetting his name right now. I'm really struggling with my memory. Kyle Filipowski was giving him the business. And this is a 19-year-old kid who's an extreme athlete. I think he had over a 40-inch vertical. He's a guy that for teams late lottery to 20 could be getting a really high upside player. So I wanted to give a shout out to my 2 Baylor Bears.
Average shout out.
Average shout out. Yeah, for sure.
Make sure you cut that out of the podcast.
I will. That won't make the final
Yeah,
cut.
I know that y'all would be giving shout outs if y'all had players that are actually going pro out of Tech.
You know what? I won't be salty, and you know what? I'll say I hope that they have good long careers in the G
I'm about to
League.
put y'all's own college fandom to the test here. I want y'all to name 3 players that played for Texas Tech that are going to be drafted Wednesday and Thursday.
3?
3. There are 3.
I mean, I can give you 2.
Who's that?
Sure.
We discussed one of them.
Terrence Shannon's the other one.
Yep. And then there was a guy that was originally committed to Tech, transferred to Texas, didn't like his minutes, and then ended up coming back to Tech, and then left Tech, and then ended up playing for Cal. Wow.
I don't know, Adam. Just tell us.
Jalen Tyson. I'm disappointed in you fellas right now.
Is Jalen Tyson actually going to get drafted then?
Yeah. Late first, early second. Oh. Some people have him going top 20.
No.
6'7", kind of prototypical scorer. Yeah, not bad.
He's 6'5".
Is he? No, he's taller than 6'5", isn't he?
No, he's 6'5". That's what it says on the internet.
Yeah, that's what I said, 6'5".
So, yeah, cool. Well, I mean, it's draft time, and a lot of these guys went through some pretty unique interviews, and I thought it'd be fun if we asked a couple of them, and we get you guys' responses. Is that cool?
Oh shit! Like
if we're done talking about NBA stuff.
Yeah. Wait. So you're saying you're going to ask us a draft question and see how we would answer it?
Yeah, I'm gonna give each of you guys. It's not gonna be the same question. I'm gonna give each of you guys a question that I found, and it's one of those like weird question type things.
Oh shit! All right, I'll play ball.
All right.
Sure.
All right, Adam. Adam, here you go. Ready? If you were on a train and the conductor died, what would you do?
How fast is the train going?
Oh, good question.
What would I do? I would probably end up yelling frantically and trying to find anyone with any knowledge of trains to come up and do it. I don't think that I would go in there immediately. I would maybe try and find a pilot or anybody that has knowledge of a bunch of buttons and try and get them to do it. So I would coordinate the communication to find the best person to come up, but I don't think I would end up doing it myself.
That's the difference between you and me, Adam. I am the conductor right away. I'm the conductor.
You're driving the train.
Oh yeah,
I'm making sure this puppy gets to a safe halt.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, not so fast. I got one for you.
Oh yeah,
Rob. If you were the size of a pencil and stuck in a blender, how would you get out?
Jesus Christ.
I'd blend myself until I was fine. I just sprinkle out.
What the if you were the size of a pencil and you were stuck in a blender, how would you get out? So the size of a pencil, or you are an actual pencil?
You were the size of a pencil and stuck in a blender. So I guess all you got to do is just kind of like just pull up because you're the size of a...
I would wait for somebody to pour liquid in there to help my escape.
No, you drown at that point.
No.
I may like jump, turn it on, and then the blender blades would create a fan and just blow me out. Yeah, I would do that.
Don't the fans go down?
No, they don't. Not on my blender.
Oh God.
Do you guys want to hear some other ones?
Yeah, we'll hear a couple more. We'll do this.
All right. So typically when they do the interviews, it's in a large like auditorium or conference center, things like that. And one of the questions someone will ask is, how many basketballs can fit in this room?
Whew.
I don't know what that has to do with anything. A good question though. This is a really good question. Are you the best player we'll interview today? I think that's that's a good way to see kind of like either how hungry and how humble they are, but also like if they're going to go out and kick some ass for you. It's a really good question.
I can tell you what answer I'd like if I was a GM and I asked that. I would say I think I'm one of the best players in the draft. There are a lot of other good players, but what I can tell you is that nobody in the draft will outwork me. And if I'm not the best, I'll become the best.
Yeah, you're super cliche with that, but hey, good
That's
answer.
a great answer. And I'm going number
I
one
mean, yeah,
overall to the
not
Spurs
an
because we're
original
That
trading
answer,
up
but
for the
it's
that's
first
not
pick.
a 19-year-old answer though. That's not a 20-year-old answer.
Mature, grown
That's
motherfucking man
yeah.
answer like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you watch a bunch of rom-coms, absolutely, it's fantastic.
Okay. But okay, we're getting on. Okay. I have one topic. I know one topic that I do want to bring up that's not weird ass draft class related, nothing related to the NBA draft, but there was a big move made by a couple teams here a couple days ago that we haven't had time to discuss. And that was the Chicago Bulls sending Alex Caruso to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Josh Giddey. I want y'all's take on that trade. And at the end, I'm going to give mine.
Well, from what
Well,
I've heard, is the Chicago has really good under 18 clubs. So Giddy was like really excited to head up there and check those out. So I think it's a
Jesus.
good fit.
He'll never live that down. All right, Rob, give me a real answer.
yeah, well, I mean, I think, OKC was really moving away from even playing Josh Giddey in the playoffs. You saw that they were almost preparing for life after Giddey, so it was just a matter of time before they shipped him out for something, and the something they got was an all defensive guard. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that when you look at their lineup, Giddey wasn't working out. They brought in Gordon Hayward. He didn't really work out. I think that Caruso is a guy that is going to be a good fit, and it's going to be a kind of a breath of fresh air because a couple of the other guys outside of guys that they had drafted haven't really been working out perfectly. But obviously the guys they've drafted are wonderful. So it's made up for everything.
You're just not going to see the floor when your competition's SGA. You're just not.
You're saying
He will because of his defensive
you're saying
ability.
Alex
He
No, no.
Caruso
will.
I'm
is not going to
talking,
see the
talking
floor?
Giddy. Giddy was never going to see the floor because of
Well, I
SGA.
don't think Giddey wasn't going to see the floor because of SGA. I think Giddey stopped seeing the floor because he couldn't shoot. And whenever your best skill set is being somewhat ball dominant, that's when I'll say if you can't shoot and play off ball, you're going to have a tough time playing alongside a guy like SGA who you want to have the ball in your hands. It's crazy though. So right after this trade happens, I think AJ sent it to the group or maybe I did, one of us. And I immediately said, man, good trade for Oklahoma City, right? They just came off a series where Josh Giddey was unplayable, borderline. His plus minus was terrible. He couldn't shoot like we were just talking about. And Alex Caruso, like you said, second team All NBA defense, widely considered one of the best defenders in the league for a while, can shoot off ball, doesn't need the ball, and could slot in really well in a closing lineup and give the NBA one of the best 1 through 3 defensive lineups in basketball with Lou Dort, SGA, and Caruso, right? And then, I'm listening to Bill Simmons' podcast. I know I reference him on here a lot, and AJ hates me bringing up other podcasts, but both him and Ryan
Plug it.
Russillo thought that this was a good trade for Chicago. And they said, just a year ago, Josh Giddey was a guy 20 years old, putting up crazy numbers, big rebounder, big passer, and he's still young and they're doing it. And they felt like they were trading low, that they moved Giddey too early and they didn't maximize the return for him. And I think it could be one of those things that's good for both teams. I think that maybe if Giddey works on a shot, he can go and revitalize his career a little bit in Chicago, kind of being out of the limelight a little bit. But I do think that Alex Cruz is a guy that's going to come in and immediately be able to contribute and make Oklahoma City better. And at the worst
You
is going to
said
be able to play in a closing lineup in the playoffs.
you said Giddy's going to get out of the limelight in Chicago.
Well, just like they're not expected to be anything, right? Like Oklahoma
No,
City has playoff aspirations,
yeah. Well,
championship aspirations.
we know where the Thunder are going. I don't know what this trade does for Chicago. I'm a little confused on what their process and thinking is because I mean if they're also trying to get rid of Zach LaVine, I don't know if DeMar DeRozan is going to be hanging around there much longer. I don't know if they're like kind of in a pseudo rebuild type situation or if they're going to go out because they went out and got Caruso. So I'm curious to see what the Bulls end up doing here this year because if I feel they're going to be like just 500 team that's going to be in
at
this
best.
nonstop circle of, somewhere between 10 and 15 picks in the draft, and they're just not going to get any better and never get over the hump.
I think there's a chance that the Spurs finish higher than the Bulls. I'm not high on the Bulls at
No,
all.
the Bulls are going to blow it up.
Yeah. Oh,
They're not
yeah.
going to stay
Yeah.
between 10 to 15. They're especially don't want to stay past 10 because we have their pick that's top 10 protected next year. So I think that it's very likely that they move on from Nikola Vucevic. I think it's very likely that they don't resign DeRozan, who I think is either an unrestricted or a restricted free agent. I don't think that they're going to resign him. And they're going to do anything and everything they can to move on from Zach LaVine, who is undoubtedly has one of the worst contracts in the NBA. You actually saw Chicago get better when he didn't play, and they got to play some of their young guys, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu. But I think whenever you go get a guy like Josh Giddey, you're preying on upside. Again, this guy 2 years ago was widely considered one of the top 50 assets in the NBA. And he didn't play poorly during the regular season. It was mainly he lost his confidence, couldn't shoot in the playoffs, and his stock dropped pretty quickly. So I think it's a trade that could end up working out for both teams. The Bulls aren't going anywhere. They're not going anywhere.
I think it was more than his lack of ability to shoot, but also his he was getting targeted defensively, and people were just going right at him, and he was kind of getting cooked. He would get drawn out on the perimeter, and his foot speed was honestly slower than average at position. So if you're consistently getting blown by, you're not gonna you can't be shooting poorly and be playing bad defense. Like, I don't care how good of a rebounder and distributor you are, you're not going to be getting minutes if you're struggling in those two areas.
So is that Chicago's way of saying we're moving on from Lonzo Ball?
He only has 1 year left in his contract, and they're not going to re-sign him.
I think the NBA's moved on from Lonzo Ball, to be brutally
I think
honest.
LiAngelo,
I don't know what's next.
LiAngelo has a better chance of playing again than Lonzo.
Hell no. I'm better than LiAngelo right now.
I have a Lonzo Ball jersey, for the record. I bought a Lakers Lonzo Ball jersey.
No,
you bought a Lakers jersey?
Yeah,
what is wrong with you?
I know.
I remember when you were like, I like his game. I'm like, shut the hell up. You're just being a dude.
I did, though. I still, outside of his injuries, I love Lonzo Ball's game.
For sure.
I love Lonzo's game, actually. Good defender, athlete.
He is.
Never going to play at a high level in the NBA ever again.
Probably not, but hey, we're rooting for him. I would like to see him get back to that level, and I think people would maybe even cheer for him like they did when, D Rose dropped that 50-point game, and it was all, he's back, he's doing this craziness again. So like, I think, everyone's cheering for that moment or hoping it happens. I am. I know.
Crazy. He's only 26 years old, which is wild. Lonzo Ball is. So I mean, he has time, but I mean, it's just tough when we have that just target now.
Hey.
Also, what?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say JJ Redick got introduced as the coach today for the Lakers, which I think it's interesting. I thought it was a good interview for the most part. I wish he needs to surround himself with some guys that have very experienced assistant coaching or head coaching prowess, because I don't know if JJ is going to be the guy. He said he didn't talk to LeBron James about the coaching. I was like, okay, sure, buddy.
As soon as I saw that he said he was done podcasting, I knew he was ready to take it seriously. I knew that he was going to put his responsibilities aside and get the Lakers where they need to be.
What about him dropping the F-bomb, saying "I don't give a fuck" in his interview? Kind of came across to me as like you're like putting on a persona right now. We've never heard you talk like that. I think he was asked what was he asked that made him say that? Like, what do you say to all the doubters out there that don't think you're ready? He's like, I really don't know how to answer that, but I honestly don't give a fuck. I'm like, stop trying to act cool. Honestly, I kind of liked him less after hearing that. I really did.
He was trying too hard for you, Adam.
Fucking
he was trying too hard.
Yeah, he's a try hard.
It's one thing to sit there and watch the game, and like obviously you have a basketball mind that is second to none. My thing is, how are you going to deal with just, that this guy's contract's coming up. He was trying to get PT. Are you going to throw him a bone? Guys are going to be coming into your office asking for all kinds of stuff. You're going to have to be monitoring guys' curfews I mean, there's so much things that go on outside of just coaching that, I don't know if he's fully prepared. And I think he's going to be a fish out of water for at least the first half of the season, if not the entire
How many
first
minutes
season.
is he going to give to Bronny?
Yeah, that's a big one. Like, do you trade up to get Bronny at number 10? So we'll see.
Oh God, might as well just draft Bryce James.
I don't know. I think we're underestimating a guy that has seen a lot of different organizations and the way that they run from the inside out. Like
but they're not good organizations.
He's played on some good basketball teams.
All I'm saying is you learn probably more from the bad organizations than you do from the good ones, to be brutally honest, depending on where you are.
He played,
you can learn what not to do.
Played on those good Clippers teams. He played on a good 76ers
Orlando
team.
Oh, you mean the Clippers teams that has a show about them now?
Yeah, they were still good though. Yeah, they're viewed.
That Orlando squad was good.
Yeah, they never got over the hump, but they were still a good basketball team. Okay. I know that we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the draft after the fact, and we're going to celebrate our 2 future All NBA players. But I want us to go down to the record and have our prediction for the 2 picks that the Spurs will have. And we're going to start with Rob. Who are we drafting at 4 and who are we drafting at 8?
All right. So, okay. Let me just start by saying I do not want Matas. I don't want Matas Buzelis. I saw him play, and I'm not that high on him, so I will be supremely disappointed if we pick him at 4, or even if we pick him at 8. I don't really like his game. But I think that we're gonna end up picking Castle.
Oh, he stole mine. I think we're going to take Castle.
I think we're going to go Castle, and I think we're going to go Necht. We're going to go Dalton Necht. Let's go.
Aga.
Man, in an ideal world, I would love to see one guy we didn't talk about was Reed Shepherd. I wouldn't mind seeing him drop a little bit. I wouldn't mind seeing damn it, what's his name? The other French dude.
Sarr.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him drop down, but if we're going as what the mocks are telling us or what we're seeing, I do think Castle is a great pick, but I also wouldn't mind like a Devin Carter from Providence.
Bucket getter. 8. Bucket getter.
I wouldn't mind someone like him either. So I'm gonna go Castle and Carter, and see. Maybe we'll see what happens from there. But I'm also open to anyone that falls into our laps.
I'm glad that you brought up Devin Carter because I don't have a ton of exposure to him, but I watched some highlights of him the other day, and that dude is one of the best bucket getters in the draft. Can shoot from range. Him, Reed Shepherd, Dalton Knecht are probably 3 of the best shooters in the draft. I echo. I used to be a Reed Shepherd hater, but I think that he might be one of the best shooting / playmaking players that we could get that has at least a little bit of upside, tested very well athletically. I'll tell you who I think we're going to pick. I think we're going to pick Stephon Castle, unless Zachary Rizachet falls. I think we end up with Castle, and I think we end up with Tijane Saluan at the 8th overall pick. He has the same management as Wemby. He's obviously French, so he would be a friend to Wemby. And I also think he's a high motor guy. I think that he's a good defender, and if he can develop a shot, I think he could end up being a good stretch 4. So I think we end up with those 2 guys. I think I end up with a French national jersey of him, and I think that we're competing for an NBA championship come 2026. Yeah, that's what I'm predicting right now.
I like that prediction.
You heard it here first.
It's crazy.
That's bold and correct. I'm kidding.
Crazy that the NBA draft is now just a bunch of foreigners. Like it's the games has expanded so much, and I think it's going to be fun to see the Olympics, and we're definitely going to have an Olympics basketball podcast where we're talking about all the Team USAs and our predictions there.
Oh, yeah. I wish we could go to the old chat that you and I are in and see those predictions and how wrong you were about the NBA or about the U.S. national team.
Hey man, I said that they're going to win gold. It's not going to be by 30 points a
No,
game.
you specifically, you said those older veterans who would come in and take us to gold are done playing. And then what happened? All of them were like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm playing. LeBron's like, I'm in. Curry, I'm in. KD, I'm in.
Sure.
And you were like,
Sure.
oh, here's my thumb. I'm going to go sit on that.
Yeah, well, I think I mean the French got silver last time, and I just think that now we see all these young guys, and they're going to want to play in Paris, and this is a preview, so good spoiler, dumb shit. So basically, I do think the USA is going to get gold. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park.
I think we're walking in any park we want with the team that we're sending there.
We're 20-piecing nations with confidence.
Like Canada's the second best, and we're gonna boof them.
Yeah, we're gonna make SGA cry.
Dude,
We're gonna
Canada's
make Dylan
actually
Brooks
nice.
pout. Nah,
Canada's really
they're
nice.
nice. They're nice. We're scared of RJ Barrett.
Yeah, I hate RJ Barrett. All right, so I think maybe late Wednesday, maybe Thursday. I'm off Thursday. I
Yeah.
could film early, but I think we should get back on and do a little talk post NBA draft. And we appreciate our listeners, obviously, for tuning along and listening. If you've made it this far in the podcast, 1, we appreciate you. 2, if you aren't already, like and subscribe us on all of our socials. TikTok, Instagram, Baseline Bumps Podcast. We're also on YouTube. Give us a follow, give us a like. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. We definitely appreciate y'all for tuning in. It has been another episode of the Baseline Bums podcast. AJ, Adam, thank y'all for joining me. And that was some good draft stuff. And yeah, we'll be back with some more draft chat post draft. And as always, it is
Go Spurs. Go.